If you enjoy our work, consider making a donation to mixtapestories.net or at Patreon/mixtapestories, all one word. Thank you. Mixtape Stories, creating beautiful fiction in a disappointing timeline. When he signed up to join the Grey Defense Force's Human Corps of Volunteers, Sandy Dhaliwal thought he'd be fighting to liberate a fellow primate race from the nihilistic cephalopods. It turns out the Jancalli didn't want to be liberated. They had been waging an insurrection ever since the Greys unleashed the Human Corps onto the native population. Serving as an interpreter in the 22nd Canadian Battalion, Sandy is tasked with the care of Dr. Larbra, a high-value prisoner responsible for unleashing a virus onto the human warriors. When their chopper is shot down, Sandy and Dr. Larbra must survive in an unforgiving jungle. It's here where his sworn enemy forces Sandy to face his humanity. Join us for The Human Corps by Michael Juge.
Just embracing what I am. That's what Hudson scrawled onto his mech suit's breastplate. Somehow he was able to misspell embracing. The hopper's passenger bay was bathed in red light, casting Hudson and the other warriors kitted up in full battle rattle and menacing relief. In stark contrast, seated next to me was the pitiful figure of Dr. Larbra. The drop seats weren't designed for comfort, and they certainly weren't designed to accommodate Jancalli, who were larger and wider than humans. With her hands restrained behind her back, Dr. Larbra made an effort not to show any sign of physical distress in front of her captors. I tried to make sure that she was as comfortable as possible given the circumstances. I even tried giving her a sympathetic smile, but with my faceplate drawn, she couldn't see it. Dr. Larbra could have mistaken me for any other warrior in the 22nd Canadian Battalion. Mech suits not only provided ablative armor from enemy fire and microhydraulics to counteract Norbis's higher gravity, the exoskeleton with its blackout faceplate stripped us of any individuality. In complete darkness, the hopper skimmed just above the jungle's tree line to deliver the United Grey Consortium's most prized prisoner to division headquarters at Camp Toronto. Warrant Officer Cohen was pummeling Limp Bizkit on Vox. She'd been playing the CD ever since returning from an R&R, to the delight of almost everyone in Bravo Company. I hated Nookie. So did Dr. Larbra, judging by her scowl, though her reasons were far more personal, given her association to the song. A little over a week ago, we had been patrolling the village of Chateau Estiette. It was one of the larger villages on the west coast of the northern continent on Norbis. Firebase Kensington had been plopped down on a mesa in between 6 villages that the Consortium Intelligence Service believed had strong insurrectionist sympathies. Chateau Estiette had been more compliant than the other villages in Camp Toronto's AOR, but we still needed to patrol regularly. I was Lieutenant Nguyen's Kalish interpreter, translating between him and the mayor of Chateau Estiette. When the meeting broke up, I went out back to relieve myself. I was in midstream when suddenly I heard a rustling behind the dumpster. I hoisted my rifle and exclaimed in modern standard Kalish, "Emerge from the refuse bin with your arms in the upward position." Translated, it sounds ridiculous. It does to the Jancalli as well, but modern standard Kalish is the only dialect easily understood throughout the northern continent. Furthermore, it can be learned far more quickly than any of the local dialects. Out from the trash bin, arms emerged.
"I intend no harm, human warrior,"
the Jancalli woman replied back in modern standard. I pulled her out and immediately recognized the elderly Jancalli from the deck of cards we were issued. She was the King of Hearts. Most warriors thought all Jancalli looked alike. Bigfoot meets crocodiles was the best description, with their scaly green and brown skin, which has a passing resemblance to a reptile, even though they were mammalian. Fellow primates, in fact. But I recognized her. This was Dr. Larbra, the head geneticist for the offspring of Anko, who invented the emo that infected the consortium networks with a virus that crashed our network communications. I zip-tied Dr. Larbra's hands and steered her over to the lieutenant. Sergeant Mackenzie lined up the residents of the village and sauntered over menacingly with his non-sanctioned .44 Magnum revolver strapped onto his thigh, asking the residents to identify the suspect. Mackenzie had a way of scaring the existentiality of anyone meeting his eyes. The residents were quick to identify her as Dr. Larbra. Everyone was adamant that they had no knowledge that she had been hiding out in their village. They did not want their community raised like the other villages. As we boarded the hopper to take Dr. Larbra back to Firebase Kensington, Warrant Officer Cohen played Nookie on the intercom, so everyone, including the residents of Chateau Estates, knew that the maple leaves of death were large and in charge. The warriors bellowed Nookie at Dr. Larbra as they marched her into the hopper.
"Hey, college,"
Hudson called out through his headset radio. The United Grey Consortium had intercoms that utilize entanglement to communicate across hundreds of light years instantaneously. But thanks to the emo, we had to make do with old-style EM radios. I pressed the mic onto my headset. "What's up, Hudson?"
"What's this thing? Chafunky balls?"
"You mean Chafunk de Bolts?" It's a super new year on Norbis. Every 12 years, the little red dwarf sun that's called Giblet appears to be eaten by the main yellow sun, Virak. It's their turn of the decade.
No shit. Wait, so you're telling me that it just so happens that the Crocs are having their super new year right now when we're about to hit Y2K?
It's a coincidence. Polachek, who was sitting next to Hudson, slapped his armored shoulder to get his attention.
Speaking of Y2K, you heard the Yanks are shitting themselves? Something about their computers might think it's 1900 instead of 2000 when the new year hits.
The other warriors laughed, tossing insults at the nations back on Earth, like the US and the Soviets, who insisted on remaining unincorporated instead of joining the United Grey Consortium.
I hope it all falls to shit on them come midnight.
Would serve the assholes right.
I was about to ask Hudson if he planned to celebrate the new millennium when suddenly a gaping hole appeared where Hudson and Polachek were a moment ago, and the hopper banked sharply. Lieutenant Nguyen called out on the base station radio.
Toronto, this is Kensington, Hopper 2. We've been hit.
The hopper pitched in an evasive maneuver, but moments later we were struck again.
Toronto, we're coming under heavy fire.
I turned to Dr. Larbra and tightened her harness. "Grasp the handles, Dr. Larbra." She nodded and braced herself.
Brace for impact.
"Mr. Sandip, you must arise."
I awoke to the orange hue of fire and Dr. Larbra jostling me. My visor had been shattered. I unlocked my helmet, which fell off. I was upside down.
We must exit with all haste.
Dr. Larbra released me from the harness and grabbed onto me before the intense gravity could fling me to the floor. I tried to make sense of everything. Flames licking all around the passenger bay. Other warriors were likewise hoisted upside down, some with missing limbs, all appearing lifeless. I wanted to release the harnesses of the others, but Dr. Larbra pushed me out of the gaping hole of the hopper into the fetid jungle. There was firing all around. In the darkness, without the benefit of the visor's night vision, I couldn't find my people. Then a hand grabbed me and pushed me down. Even with his visor drawn, I knew it was Sergeant Mackenzie.
How the hell did she get out of her restraints?
He barked. I turned around to see Dr. Larbra, who is no longer cuffed. I don't know, Sergeant, but I think she just saved my life. There were impacts in all directions as Lieutenant Nguyen called in firing solutions. Some of the rounds hit too close. Just then, the lieutenant got hit and was torn to pieces. Mackenzie called out on the radio.
Archangel, Hopper 2, adjust your fire! Adjust your fire!
But there was no response, and the rounds got closer.
We must hasten our exit, Mr. Sandip. Now!
Our hopper was gone. Lieutenant Nguyen was gone. There was no stand to take here. Sarge, we gotta go! Mackenzie nodded.
Grab the croc.
Outside of her suppression collar, Dr. Larbra had no physical restraints to keep her with us. Yet, she followed me and Mackenzie obediently. I heard a lot of Jancalli were like that. Mackenzie gestured.
Kensington is back this way.
He laid down a portable dampener, and we ducked out of the enemy fire, hoping that they wouldn't catch our trail. We climbed over a decaying fallen tree trunk when the remains of the hopper exploded. Firebase Kensington was 20 kilometers as the ants flew, but we weren't flying anywhere. Between Sergeant Mackenzie and me, we had a pistol, an old-school revolver, one working visor, and one rifle 3/4 charged. Mackenzie ordered that I put Dr. Larbra back in cuffs. I zip-tied the scientist's wrist in front rather than behind her back, arguing that she could move faster that way. Mackenzie groaned, but he relented. The network suppressor collar was still locked around Dr. Larbra's neck, so she wouldn't be communicating with her friends who just tried to kill us. But as we fumbled our way through the bush, something kept bugging me. The old woman could have left me in the hopper to die if she wanted. But instead, she blew her chance to reunite with her insurrectionist buddies to save me. Dr. Larbra was not the boogeyman everyone made her out to be. During the week in our custody at Firebase Kensington, I had a lot of time to spend with her. Divisional headquarters at Camp Toronto was supposed to pick her up the moment we caught her, but there was some kind of snafu. So she had to spend a week in a Dropbox cell out in the bush with us. Captain Jennings, the company CEO, tried to elicit information in his interrogations, but Dr. Larbra simply replied that she did not recognize the illegal occupation by the United Grey Consortium. Once I translated that, I then had to translate Jennings' lecture on how the Greys had come to liberate the Jancalli, a former stakeholder race from the Sartakian Order, and that the Jancalli Provisional Government, which is composed of the Jancalli living in exile, had authorized the Grey Defense Forces to reform the tragically brainwashed population on Norbis. Really convincing stuff to an ardent insurrectionist. Dr. Larbra shrugged.
Convince yourself if you must, Captain, but I have nothing I can offer you.
Fuming, Captain Jennings stormed out, having learned nothing from Larbra, outside of the fact that she thought that humans smelled funny. This left me alone with Dr. Larbra in the holding cell drop box. Maybe she was bored, maybe she was trying to elicit my sympathies. Whatever the reasons, Dr. Larbra engaged me in conversation, which I was happy to do because it allowed me the opportunity to become more proficient in modern standard Gaulish. She told me how beautifully I spoke the language, which was bullshit because I couldn't trill well, but there's worse things than flattery. She asked how I came to be an interpreter, how Gaulish compared to English, and why the other warriors called me College, even though that was neither my surname nor my rank. I didn't see any harm, so I told her about how I had been a college student studying land management for the consortium's plan to reorganize the Terran economy towards exporting coffee. But then I quit after my first sophomore semester to join the Human Corps of Volunteers.
Why would you do something like that?
Because I was about to spout all of the platitudes that we came to protect all stakeholders in the United Grey Consortium, to include the incorporated nations on Earth from the evil Sartakian Order's aggression. But seeing the futility of debating politics and feeling the heavier gravity of the planet without my mech suit on, I decided to be honest. Because, Dr. Larbra, I need to embrace what I am. We were a couple of hours out from the crash site when Sergeant Mackenzie pulled me aside.
Kensington's over a day's hike under the best conditions, and we need to rest. There's a stop on the way that might work.
Bo Shen.
You're okay with that, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's probably all leveled, Sarge, but we might find some place we can crash tonight. Mackenzie patted my shoulder. What had been the village of Bo Shen was now mostly a heap. A ruin of apartment buildings that had all been razed. That was the price for being a village sympathetic to the insurrectionists. We decommissioned the village less than 5 months ago, and the jungle had already reclaimed most of the former village. We traipsed past the rubble of the apartment complex, where an insurrectionist cell operated, where that woman used her own daughter. Mackenzie located a storefront that had survived the demolition. We crawled through the broken entrance and cleared our way to the rear. Beneath the store was a basement.
I'll set up the dampeners.
We rummaged through the fallen shelves and found a few pouches of freeze-dried, vat-grown nistrat. They're like shellless land crabs, which was kosher for Dr. Larbra, who claimed to be Divwasi, a pacifist religion that didn't believe in killing animals. I drained water from my mech suit, which was reconstituted from my waist, and her restraints were loosened. Dr. Larbra cooked up some vat crab and pasta. Thank God pasta was still pasta even hundreds of light years away. We sat down in the dimly lit storage room. Dr. Larbra stirred in some vat-grown bug sauce, which sounds disgusting, smells even worse, but tastes great.
Your colleagues, my respects for their transition.
I am in appreciation, I replied, employing a phrase I learned in my first day of immersion.
Just before the crash, one of your colleagues mentioned something about cephalopods.
I was caught by surprise because that conversation was over headsets and would be inaudible to human ears. She chuckled, gesturing to her own enormous lobes. Jancalli weren't much for sight, but they could hear a pin drop a click away. That's correct. We were discussing your New Year's is going to coincide with the Earth's.
What year will it be on your home world?
The turn of the millennium, the year 2000. Larbra stopped stirring.
Are you telling me that your civilization is a mere 2,000 years old?
No, the calendar we use is newer. It was introduced by... I had trouble putting my thoughts into college, so I simply said, human civilization's a little bit over 5,000 years old. Dr. Larbra sneezed with laughter, because that's how Jancalli laughed.
Mr. Sandip, we have grocery store outlets older than that.
She wasn't exaggerating. During my 6-month Modern Standard immersion training, I learned the basics of the various Jancalli cultures. While the Gray civilization dwarfed our own by 150,000 years, the Jancalli race had beat them by an additional 100,000 years. While we Homo sapiens were battling out with Homo erectus and still figuring out the whole make fire thing, the Jancalli had cities of millions, trading with each other, along with currency, labor guilds, bureaucracy, writing, and poetry. Lots and lots of bad poetry. Dr. Larbra jostled her head in disbelief.
Children. We are contending with children occupying our lands.
We may be children, but we have initiative. Our civilization advanced from steam engines to orbital flight in a matter of decades, opposed to millennia like your geriatric civilization. I was amazed that I actually remembered the word for geriatric. Dr. Larbra gave a slight nod.
I submit my congratulations to your ancestors, but I do not believe your people's impulsiveness should be considered an asset, considering your recent history.
The recent events on Earth wasn't a secret, but it was odd knowing that all sorts of alien races within and beyond the consortium knew about us. So a few years ago, back when I was a kid, the US and the Soviets each lobbed one nuke at each other, which fucked up my life nicely, as Toronto was downwind of the vaporized city of Cleveland. And the two superpowers were about to finish what they started a few years after that, when the United Grey Consortium stepped in and halted the race to Armageddon.
Perhaps if you focused your attention on societal development, you might have come to embrace the tenets of devoicé.
Pacifism indeed. That was rich coming from the architect of the emo. The Nanette virus she created not only disrupted the network communications, where the warriors of the Human Corps volunteers could no longer communicate with the telepathy-based Grey commanders, the emo also frazzled human serotonin delivery systems. Warriors whose open network caught the emo fell into deep depressions. There were tens of thousands of warriors on their way back home, cradling themselves in fetal positions, all listening to Elliott Smith. Even with advanced Grey medicine, it would take them months to get back to normal. Thanks to Dr. Larbra, we all had to place our networks into a safety lockdown mode. I dithered privately whether I should even bother to call out her hypocrisy to claim to be a pacifist while inventing a bioweapon when Sergeant Mackenzie walked up.
College. A minute?
Sure, Sarge. I got up and let Dr. Larbra return to stirring the bubbly soup. Mackenzie led me halfway up the stairs, but still within eyesight of Larbra.
Listen, I can appreciate keeping your friend there entertained with whatever you're discussing, because I know this village holds some memories.
I don't know what you're talking about. Mackenzie gave me a wry grin.
I can understand you wanting to distract yourself with conversation, but I need you to maintain your distance. She's been buttering you up all week. You think you're in control, but you're not.
I was about to protest, but he held up a hand.
I just wanted to remind you that it's because of her we're all in this mess.
Look, we put a suppressor collar on her, Sarge. She couldn't have put a bead on our hopper.
I'm not talking about that. Your friend is the reason why we're short 10,000 warriors. She's been brainwashed by the Sortakian order squids and unleashed the emo.
Mackenzie then softened.
You're a good kid, College. You have a kind heart. But you gotta understand that others will use that to try to drive a wedge between us. You and I, we're family, the same clan, Toronto. Never forget what we owe and embrace what we are.
What are we even doing here, Sarge?
We're here to embrace what we are.
I startled out of that recurring nightmare. It wasn't so much a nightmare as a memory of her, the Jancalli girl, her purple eyes. Ever since locking down my network, my dreams lost their whimsy and instead went straight for replays of events. Other warriors on Norbis complained of the same thing, memories being played back in their dreams. Something about the networks being in lockdown mode and not being updated. I walked up the stairs and relieved Mackenzie, who handed me his rifle and promptly went comatose the moment he lay down. I had a view of the outside from the top of the stairs through the broken windows of the storefront. It was muggy. It was always muggy on the west coast of the northern continent. My mech suit absorbed the sweat and used the salts to power the cooling unit. Nifty gray tech. The sky lit up in the distance, followed by the sound of thunder. No, not thunder. Ordnance. Somewhere, dozens of clicks away, something was happening. I wanted to leave this place. It wasn't the artillery so much. Bo Shen was scrapped, of use to no one, but it was haunted. Ain't find a way to kill me yet. Eyes burn with stinging sweat. Seems every path leads me to nowhere.
What is that?
I jolted. Dr. Larbra was sitting up, her arms tied to a column. What was what?
That Lord Peace. You were in Pintitcho.
I canted my head, confused.
Don't tell me you don't know Lord Peace and
After being judged by my impromptu language teacher, I recalled the root ideograms. Ipsh was related to poetry, and singing! Wait, I was singing? She nodded.
I am surprised such a basic phrase confounded you, Mr. Sandip. You're such an articulate being, especially for a human.
They must have skipped poetry of sound and instruments in my immersion class. After basic, while the rest of the newly minted warriors were sent off to serve on Norbis, they put me into modern standard Kalish. I learned a lot in my 6 months immersion course, but it was generally tactical phrases like, how many insurrectionists in that brigade have plasma rifles with DNA scoping? And who supplied the gravimetric detonators? That sort of thing. I only knew the word poetry through my cultural geography course. Jancalli loved their version of poetry.
I find it refreshing that you speak modern standard with such respect, Mr. Sandy. Or should I refer to you as college, seeing as your colleagues do?
Sandy's fine, Dr. Larbra.
What was your focus of study in college? The military?
No, it took me a second to recall the word. My major was in land management.
You don't strike me as someone dedicating himself to something so vocational.
I smiled. Land management certainly was not my first choice of majors. The consortium paid for my tuition as education was free, but in order to not live in the same house as my drunken uncle in the Vancouver outskirts of Surrey, I needed a full ride. As the United Great Consortium was transforming the Terran stakeholder economy to agriculture exports into the rest of the consortium, every other parcel of land needed to be allocated appropriately to support the human stakeholder population. The consortium was willing to pay my way out of Maple Leaf if I majored in land management. If it makes you feel any better, my minor was in linguistics, I said.
Ah, now at that you excel. You seem to understand that it's not enough to just know the words, but how language tells you how to think.
And as for yourself, before you became a free will hating nihilist, you were a professor, is that correct?
Indeed. I was a professor in genetics.
Family business? Jancalli tended to have lineages of the same profession going back thousands of years.
No, I was an anomaly in a long line of poeticians.
Poeticians. Jancalli society had something as useless as people whose sole job was to study poetry, and they were treated like rock stars. No wonder why it took them eons to go from steam engines to the first internal combustion engine in the same time it took for us to go from the discovery of crop husbandry to personal computers. Dr. Larbra saw my smirk and added,
It's true. In fact, my granddaughter was studying human Lortbish at the same university where I taught.
Really?
Your military entertainment radio station on Norbis are open to everyone. Rithis replicated one of those EM radio receivers and studied your Lortbish. That was before she joined the resistance.
So your granddaughter studied her enemy's music?
Know your opponent, as well as yourself,
she said, quoting some famous Jancalli, but the phrase could have been lifted directly from Sun Tzu.
Actually, Vitreous loved your music. She told me how there were myriad of songs calling for social justice. There was this one composer, I believed his name was Indignation Against the Apparatus.
You mean Rage Against the Machine?
My point is that you humans aren't our enemy. We share so much in common. Did you know Get Up, Stand Up has become very popular among my people?
I did not. I thought about her granddaughter listening to our radio station broadcast in Camp Toronto and other human core bases on the planet. And that's when I recalled what I was humming. Rooster. The song I was singing. It's called Rooster.
What's a rooster?
It's like a male ant, but that doesn't fly. It has roughly coating instead of scales. They're livestock, and we consume their eggs. Translating alien animals is much more difficult than military jargon. Dr. Larbra rolled her purple eyes.
You people have issues, Mr. Sandip. The Greys shouldn't have revealed themselves to you. They took your people, a race obviously too technologically and culturally primitive to have been contacted, and they used you.
Yeah, Doc, I'm familiar with the insurrectionist propaganda. You think the Greys initiated first contact before we could destroy ourselves solely to use us to become their goon squad? Well, let me ask you something. Do you know why they call it Camp Toronto? Do you know why the Maple Leafs of Death are the most feared warriors in the Human Corps of Volunteers? Because after the fallout wafted over to Toronto, exposing over 1 million of us to deadly radiation, we were as good as dead. Nobody would help us. I felt myself trembling. The memories of being a child, constantly sick with chemo treatments, seeing my mother die, then seeing my sister die, and knowing I was next. I leaned in. But the Greys took Canada in, and they saved my life. They saved all of us. You think we're being exploited, but you don't get it. We know the score. We know who brought us to the brink and who pulled us out of it. Quite simply, Doc, I owe them my life. The least I can do is embrace what I am. Dr. Larbra gave me an infuriatingly sympathetic look. The following morning, I saw debris falling from space. Whatever action was happening last night wasn't just in our AOR. It also included a battle up in orbit. While the Sartakians might have bugged off the planet itself, they weren't giving up the Norbis system. Their fleet outclassed the Grey Defense Force's Stellar Command. I'd wager that most of the debris burning into the atmosphere were remnants of the Grey fighters. As soon as I secured Larbra's restraints, we continued onward towards Fort Kensington. Through the smoke and haze, little red dwarf Giblet looked to be touching the larger yellow sun of Varrock. The Super New Year had started. Earth's New Year was still a few days out. Ants trilled in the trees as the day wore on, and the smoke got heavier as we got closer to Firebase Kensington. I didn't like what that implied. Craters and downed trees became more frequent. I was on point when I reached the clearing that surrounded the firebase. Perched on the bluff, the fort had a clear view in all directions. Smoke was billowing from multiple points. We crouched beside one of the trees before the clearing. Sergeant Mackenzie scanned the area with his visor and grimaced.
There's no movement that I can see. A lot of crocked bodies lying outside the perimeter, though.
That explained some of last night's actions in the skies. Mackenzie clicked his headset.
Kensington. Sergeant Mackenzie, do you copy?
No answer. Without a repeater or a base station, our EM radio headsets had very limited range, but we were certainly within range of the firebase to receive a signal. Mackenzie repeated the call. Still no joy.
Sergeant Mackenzie.
With all the dampeners we installed, even if the entire Bravo company was running around playing volleyball, Mackenzie's visor wouldn't detect it.
I don't like this one bit.
Sarge, I think if we approach from the scrapyard, we might get a better view.
It would provide some cover, too. I laid out the mine grid. I know exactly where to step.
We crept up the mesa until we reached the scrapyard. Bodies of Jancalli insurrectionists were rotting in the late day heat. The fires on the base were still raging. Sergeant Mackenzie tried one more time on the radio, with no response. Dr. Larbra and I followed Mackenzie's steps meticulously to avoid the mines. Circling above and silhouetted by Giblet and Varrock, flew the vulture ants over the bloated Jancalli. It wasn't until we crossed the ruptured wire that the horrifying truth came to light. Inside the dugout, I saw the first human bodies. One of them was Perry, the other, his body was too mangled for me to recognize. Charred remains were strewn about the base. Warriors cooked inside mech suits. Dropbox after Dropbox had been hit dead on. By the landing pads were the husks of 2 hoppers. Waving above the soot and acrid fumes flew the tattered flag of the 22nd Canadian Battalion Maple Leafs of Death. Originally a Toronto Maple Leafs flag with a skull and crossbones inside the maple leaf. Why hadn't the other companies in the 22nd arrived to secure the base and recover the bodies? I searched in the remains of the CO Dropbox, stepping over Captain Jennings. The base station was completely wasted, but the antenna appeared to be undamaged. We wouldn't be able to contact Camp Toronto with our headsets, but if we made for higher ground and with the antenna, I took it and an undamaged helmet. Near one of the mounds of human and Jancalli bodies, Dr. Larbra was kneeling. She was in meditation for the moment of transition for everyone, human and Jancalli alike. I leaned over to her. Let's go find the Sarge. We found Sergeant Mackenzie outside of the barracks holding the body of Sergeant Ruiz, who had a giant hole in his chest. Those two went back to the beginning of the war, all the way back to when the Human Corps of Volunteers was founded. There were stories about the first human sorties against the Sortakian order. They say that after some of the early engagements with humans, the Sortakians became scared inkless to ever face off with a human in battle. There were photos passed around showing Sergeants Ruiz and Mackenzie wearing the tentacles of vanquished cephalopodic enemies around their mech suits like bandoliers. After contending with the utter brutality of the Human Corps of Volunteers, the squids began to surrender en masse once they were assured that a gray officer would take custody of them. Among the photos in the mess Dropbox showed Sergeant Mackenzie escorting an entire column of Sartakians by himself, holding nothing more than his revolver. I knelt down beside the sergeant, who was holding the body of Ruiz. Hey, Sarge, the base station's busted, but I got an antenna. I say we make our way to Mount Aherf and try to call Toronto from there. Mackenzie chuckled.
Herp.
Sarge?
What kind of people name a place Herp?
It's where we might be able to get a signal to Camp Toronto. He turned to Dr. Larbra, staring daggers at her.
She caused this, you know.
That's not possible. She's got a suppressor on.
And you believe that croc can be restrained by gray tech? You know who this is.
Mr. Sandy.
Do you think it's any coincidence the crocs knew exactly where to hit each Dropbox? And it's just a coincidence they took down the hopper carrying her, and somehow she's still alive.
Noises. Large numbers.
Larbra cried out in broken English. I turned to her. What are you referring to?
There's movement down the ridge. Lots of footsteps.
She said back in modern standard, and then pointed to her massive earlobes. Warriors? I asked. She shook her head.
Go. We need to retreat now, Mr. Sandy.
That reaction surprised me because they were her people. Why would she even warn me? No less be so desperate to flee from them. I was about to ask when I heard a click. I turned around and saw Sergeant Mackenzie pointing a .44 Magnum at Dr. Larbra.
They're coming, aren't they? I don't know how to speak croc, but I know enough.
That's right, Sarge. She just warned me. We've got to leave.
Leave? And go where, College? She led her buddies right to us.
He held the revolver right at Larbra's face.
I intend to deny these bastards the satisfaction of a reunion.
Sarge, listen to me. You can't do this. Dr. Larbra's a high-valued prisoner. I saw the look in Mackenzie's eyes, the anguish. He was going to do it. He was going to shoot her. Dr. Larbra, for her part, looked serene, as though this was inevitable. I raised my rifle, that I reclaimed for Porter, and aimed it at him.
What in the hell do you think you're doing?
Lower the revolver, Sergeant.
Stand down, Specialist.
We've got to bug out now so we can get Dr. Larbra to Camp Toronto so the eggheads can get a crack at her. And they won't be able to do that if you vent her. Mackenzie snarled with contempt.
I took you in, son. Back when you were a worthless green piece of shit college boy. I taught you everything you knew to keep you alive. And this is what you do. You kill your own to save some low-life subhuman crock?
I can't let you kill her.
Go ahead, son. Choose a crock over your own.
Mackenzie turned back to Dr. Larbra and straightened his arm.
It's okay, Mr. Sandip. Don't kill your friend. Let the sergeant do what he needs to do.
I couldn't let him do this. I was about to squeeze the trigger when suddenly Mackenzie's head exploded. But I hadn't fired. There was another shot, and I crumpled to the ground, feeling as though I was hit with a baseball bat.
Jesus.
Fortunately, the ablative armor stopped the round.
Mr. Sandip, they're coming. We must leave.
I felt dazed. My network registered a blunt force injury to my left side, and my left kidney was bruised. With her shackled hands, Dr. Larbra helped me up. Several rounds strafed near us. Wincing in pain, I followed her, passing through the broken perimeter back into the scrapyard as mortars went off, which in turn set off the claymores and mines laid out.
Follow my footsteps exactly, Mr. Sandip.
I didn't bother to ask how she remembered where to step. I just followed her. Another mortar round hit, several meters away, which detonated a mine, which threw me into the air. Had I not been wearing my mech suit, I would have been minced meat. As it was, my network reported multiple alarms. Dr. Larbra raced over, hoisted me up like I was just a sack of potatoes, and we made it to the tree line. My network was warning me that I was losing a lot of blood. Before losing consciousness, I input the code and detonated the remaining mines.
Join us next week for the conclusion of The Human Core. Mixtape Stories is considering producing the works of new authors. If you have a work of speculative fiction that might be a good fit for this podcast, click on Submissions at mixtapestories.net for more information.
In this episode, you heard Rooster by Alice in Chains.
The following actors are available on Fiverr. The role of Sergeant Mackenzie was played by Johnny Unitas, Hudson by Robert C., Lieutenant Nguyen by Scott C., and Polachek by Marjorie Trace Juge.